The two boys asked the grave guard. Was she our mother? And he silently nodded. The graveyard was too quiet for a Saturday. Even the wind seemed scared to rustle the trees. Two boys stood still, side by side, their matching sneakers coated in cemetery dust, their questions heavier than the air around them. "Why'd she leave us here?" whispered the older one, his voice tight. "Why'd she leave us in the South? They weren't supposed to be here. They were supposed to be at summer camp, eating marshmallows and telling ghost stories. Instead, they'd been dragged into a corner of Georgia so deep it didn't show up on GPS. By a letter that said one thing: she's gone. Come find her." They had traveled across 3 states with a tired social worker and a box of files no one wanted to open. The town had 1 diner, 1 church, and more Confederate flags than stop signs. But at the very edge of it all, hidden behind iron gates and silence, was this graveyard and him. The man guarding the grave was a statue until they approached. He wore a sharply pressed uniform with metals that clinked when he breathed. His skin was weathered bronze. Lips. No one told them she was black. No one told them she had served. No one told them why they had been kept from her. They only knew what they were told. Their mother was unfit, too poor, too troubled, and worst of all, too dark-skinned for the white family who had adopted them in upstate New York. They had always wondered why the mirror didn't match the family photos, why they were the only ones with curly hair and skin that browned in summer. Their adoptive parents never lied outright. They just didn't say anything real. Until last week. Until that letter came. And now, here they were, standing in front of her grave like tourists in a war they hadn't known they were born into. The older boy, Jordan, stepped closer to the grave, tracing the etched letters with his fingers. PFC Evelyn Mae Johnson, 1978-2025, mother, daughter, soldier, private first class, he muttered, almost to himself. "She fought," said the younger one, Micah. "Like, really fought." The old man's voice came out gravelly and low, like something he hadn't used in a while. "She didn't just fight overseas. She fought here. Every damn day." He kneeled beside the grave, placing a trembling hand on the cold marble. "She cleaned floors at the base until they let her enlist. Got spit on in basic. Outran all the boys in her unit. And still, they called her names that'd make you ashamed to repeat." Micah swallowed hard. "Why didn't she keep us?" The guard looked at them now, not like a stranger, but like someone who had known them their whole lives. "She did," he said. "She kept you in the only way they'd let her. You think giving you up was what she wanted?" He chuckled without humor. "She begged to see you before she died." "Begged?" Jordan's fists clenched. "Then why didn't anyone call us?" The soldier stood up, slow but solid. "Because the people who had the power to make that call never saw her as a mother, only as a mistake, a risk, something to erase." He pointed to the line of graves nearby, rows and rows of brown and black names, barely tinted, half forgotten. "They bury us quiet. No trumpets, no parades, just silence." Micah looked at Jordan. "Why'd she join the army then? If they hated her?" The old man's eyes lit with something fierce. "Because she believed this country could be better than it was, even when it didn't believe in her. She thought if she bled for it, maybe just maybe'd love her boys back." Jordan took a step forward, kneeling down next to the stone. "She write anything? About us?" The man nodded and pulled out a worn leather notebook from his jacket. "Every day, until her hands stopped working." He handed it to them. Inside were hundreds of entries, little drawings, notes, birthday wishes, letters never sent. Each one signed the same way. "To my son and my moon, Jordan and Micah. I love you, Mom." The pages blurred with their tears. "You too," the soldier whispered, "are her unfinished revolution." For a long while, no one spoke. Then Micah, so small yet so loud in that stillness, asked, "Are we black?" The question didn't shock the old man. He just nodded again. "And that, too, is something they never let you learn?" Jordan stared down at his own hands. "I thought we were mixed, but no one ever said the word. Not once." "Mixed doesn't erase what they see first," the guard said, almost gently. "Your mother knew that. You walk into a room, they don't ask for a DNA test. They just decide who you are." "So what do we do now?" Jordan asked. The soldier looked toward the flag flapping at half-mast. "You learn her story, then you live yours louder." And with that, he turned and walked back to his post, standing tall as if guarding not just a grave, but a truth too long buried. They stayed until sunset. Later that night, in the motel room where the AC didn't work and the ceiling dripped, the boys read every page of that notebook. They whispered her words, memorized her drawings. By midnight, they knew more about their mother than anyone had ever told them. And for the first time in their lives, they didn't feel like someone else's project. They felt whole. They felt angry. They felt alive. And they weren't going back the same. The next morning, the sun rose. He wasn't sure when it started, this quiet, rising heat in his chest. A low burn that made him feel like screaming, but also standing up straighter. Maybe it had started when the old man handed him the notebook. Maybe when he saw the word mother carved into her grave. Or maybe it had always been there, tucked behind the lies he'd been fed his whole life. Micah stirred. "We leaving?" Jordan looked up. "Yeah, but not home. Not yet." Micah blinked. "Then where?" "To find out who else erased her." They packed the few things they had, some clothes, the notebook, a picture of Evelyn from her military ID the soldier had given the man stepped out into the heat. The old guard was already gone. In his place was a folded American flag resting on the bench, and beneath it, a single note. She was more than a soldier. She was a storm. Go raise hell. DT. They didn't even know his full name. But they knew what he meant. The boys headed into town. It was the kind of place where time didn't just move slow, it seemed to walk backward. Signs for whites only had been taken down decades ago, but their ghosts were still nailed to the walls. As they walked, eyes followed them. Some curious, some suspicious, some hateful. They didn't belong here and they weren't supposed to ask questions. But Jordan walked straight into the county records office with Micah behind him and dropped their mother's name on the counter like a thunderclap. "We need everything you have on Evelyn Mae Johnson." The receptionist, a white woman with tightly permed hair and a tighter smile, looked them over like they were bugs on her blouse. "She's deceased." "We know," Jordan said. "We're her sons." Her hand froze over the keyboard. "That can't be." "Why not?" She looked around. "That's not on file." Jordan leaned in. "Maybe that's the problem." Eventually, she typed. Slowly, like each keystroke hurt her fingers. When the records popped up, she stared longer than necessary. "Her parental rights were terminated in 2017, she said flatly. "Why?" "No reason listed." Jordan's voice sharpened. "You're telling me the state just took her kids for no reason?" "I'm telling you the system worked the way it was designed to." She didn't realize she'd said it aloud. Micah flinched. Jordan didn't. He leaned over the desk. "Can we get a copy?" She hesitated, but something in Jordan's face stopped her from arguing. She printed the file. He scanned every page. Neglect. Unstable housing. Potential substance use. No criminal charges. No proof. Just suggestions. Whispers that became law. "Who signed off on this?" he asked. "Judge Carl D. Reynolds." Jordan's jaw tensed. "Still alive?" The woman nodded slowly. "Still presiding." Jordan folded the file. "We're not done." Judge Reynolds' courthouse looked like a plantation in disguise. Columns. Marble. The illusion of justice. He was on recess when the boys arrived, sitting in his chambers sipping sweet tea behind a thick wooden desk. Jordan didn't ask permission. He walked in with Micah beside him and laid the file down hard. "Explain this." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" "Her sons." His face didn't move. Not even a blink. "Impossible. They were adopted." "Yeah. By white people who never told us who we were." Micah chimed in. "Did you even meet her?" Reynolds sipped his tea. "The court was given information that she was an unfit mother." "Information from who?" "Social services." "The Army." "Her commanding officer." Jordan flinched. "The Army." "She was flagged for insubordination. Repeated disciplinary action. She tried to fight back against harassment and got labeled a problem. Not uncommon." Jordan's fists tightened. Reynolds stood, brushing crumbs from his robe. "She made her choices. She fought for this country," Micah said. "And this country thanked her. With a flag and a grave." Jordan stepped forward. "You don't feel anything, do you?" Reynolds didn't blink. "What I feel doesn't matter. I followed the law." "No," Jordan said, his voice rising. "You followed a law, not justice." And for the first time, the judge looked shaken. "We're not going away," Jordan said. "This story? It's not going to stay buried like her." They walked out before he could answer. Later that day, they visited the base where Evelyn had served. A man in uniform met them at the gate, younger than the old guard from the cemetery, but with the same sad eyes. His name tag read Staff Sergeant Harris. "You're her boys?" he asked. Jordan nodded. "You knew her?" He nodded slowly. "She trained me. Taught me how to shoot straighter. Stand taller. Think smarter. She was the best." "Then why did they say she was trouble?" Harris sighed. "Because trouble is what they call a black woman who doesn't shut up when she's disrespected. She filed reports. Wrote letters. Named names. That made her dangerous." "Did you help her?" "I tried. We all did. But the system chewed her up." He paused, then reached into his pocket and handed them a flash drive. "She recorded everything. Letters. Audio. Notes. She wanted someone to know." Jordan took it. "Why didn't anyone listen?" "Because she wasn't loud enough alone." Jordan looked at his brother, then back at Harris. "Well, she's not alone anymore." That night, in a borrowed laptop at the local library, they played the recordings. Evelyn's voice came alive through the speakers, strong, smart, tired but unbroken. She talked about basic training, the slurs, the silence from higher-ups, the nights she cried into her pillow because she missed her sons more than her own skin. She named the officers who harassed her. She named the sergeant who told her she was lucky to even be allowed to serve. And in every file, she returned to one truth. "I didn't give up my boys. I was forced to." Jordan played that one twice. Then 3 times. Then again. Micah was crying. So was he. They uploaded the files. They wrote a caption. "She fought for a country that broke her. Hear her before they bury her again." They posted it. And the world caught fire. By morning, the video had 300,000 views. Then 1 million. Then 5. People from every corner of the country began to share it. Hashtags bloomed like wildflowers. Her name was Evelyn, stolen by the system. She was our mother. Journalists called. Activists marched. Old veterans came forward, saying, "I knew her too. She was a warrior." The army released a statement. Hollow. Late. The judge refused to comment. But the world was watching now. One reporter, a black woman with fire in her eyes, tracked down the old soldier from the cemetery. She found his name, Desmond Turner, a retired colonel, a man who had trained with Evelyn, loved her like a sister. He finally spoke on camera. They erased her because she made them uncomfortable. But she raised sons who are making them pay. He looked into the lens. And if this country still has a soul, it better start listening. Jordan and Micah sat on the motel bed, now too small for what they'd become. The notebook sat between them, pages curling at the edges. "What now?" Micah asked. Jordan smiled, though it was bittersweet. "Now we speak. Everywhere. Schools. Churches. News shows. Anywhere they'll let us." Think she'd be proud? Jordan looked down at her last entry. "One day they'll know who I am, and who my sons were meant to be." He closed the notebook gently. "She already is." The hotel phone rang at 6 a.m. sharp. Jordan answered it, expecting another reporter or maybe a threat because both had come in equal measure over the past 2 days. But this time, it was someone else. "This is Representative Carla Monroe. I'm flying down from D.C. I'd like to meet you boys and speak at your mother's grave." Jordan's heart skipped. He looked over at Micah, still half asleep, then back at the phone. "Yes, ma'am." That afternoon, the graveyard was different. Cameras, people, signs that read, "Honor her," and "Justice for Evelyn." News vans lined the iron fence like an army of truth. Jordan didn't recognize this place anymore, not just because of the crowd, but because it finally looked like someone cared. Monroe arrived in a sleek black car, escorted by aides. She stepped out wearing a tailored navy suit and a pendant shaped like Africa resting against her collarbone. Her presence was quiet, but commanding. When she approached the boys, she didn't speak right away. She just placed a gentle hand on each of their shoulders and nodded toward the grave. "I watched your video 3 times, she finally said. The way you carried her voice, it changed something." Jordan swallowed. She just wanted to be heard. "Well," Monroe said, stepping up to the podium, "today she will be." The crowd hushed. The congresswoman's voice carried like scripture. Private First Class Evelyn Mae Johnson was more than a soldier. She was a truth-teller in a world allergic to truth. She stood tall where others knelt to convenience. And for that, she paid the ultimate price, not in war, but in silence. But her sons, these 2 boys, have shattered that silence with her words, her story, her fire. Cameras flashed. Some in the crowd wept. Too many black women like Evelyn are punished for their strength, erased for their resistance. discarded for their love. But today, we commit to remembering, to rebuilding, and to honoring her not just with words, but with justice. After her speech, she turned to the boys. "I'm pushing legislation," she said quietly. "A federal review of all cases where parental rights were terminated without due process, especially involving Black servicewomen. It will be called Evelyn's Law." Micah's eyes widened. "She's getting a law?" "She's getting a legacy," Monroe said. That night, the motel parking lot was flooded with press and supporters. The boys couldn't walk 5 feet without someone hugging them or handing them letters addressed to your mom. One old woman even handed Jordan a faded photo of Evelyn holding him as a baby, taken before the state took them away. "I used to babysit y'all," she said, her voice shaking. She sang you Nina Simone every night. You used to hum in your sleep. Jordan clutched the photo like it was oxygen. "Why didn't you say anything all these years?" Her eyes dropped. Fear. That they'd come for my grandkids next. The next morning, another surprise came. A letter. No name. No return address. Inside was a court document signed and sealed in 2019. Application for restoration of custodial rights, Evelyn M. Johnson. Denied without review. Filed away. Forgotten. Attached was a note in trembling handwriting. She never stopped fighting. They just stopped listening. It was enough. Jordan called Monroe's office. "I want to testify." A week later, Jordan and Micah stood in front of a congressional subcommittee in Washington, D.C. Their suits didn't quite fit. Their shoes were too shiny. But their voices cut clean through the marble and microphones. Jordan held up his mother's notebook. "This is a record of a woman who gave everything and had everything stolen." He opened to the last page, reading her words aloud. "If they take my boys, I'll leave them breadcrumbs. I'll scream into these pages until someone hears me. Because love can't be erased, and truth will dig its way out." Then he looked the room dead in the eye. "We are those breadcrumbs, and we are not lost anymore." The room went still. Then applause, quiet at first, then roaring. Days later, Evelyn's grave had visitors from across the nation. Some brought flowers. Others brought notebooks. One woman left a pair of combat boots and a note. "I didn't have the strength to speak, but now I do. Thank you, Evelyn." But the most surprising visit came from a man no one expected, her former commanding officer. He arrived alone. No press. No statement. Just a medal in his hand. He laid it at her grave. And wept. Weeks passed. Then months. The boys moved out of the motel and into Monroe's care, who became their legal guardian and mentor. She enrolled them in a school where teachers knew their names before roll call, not just because of the headlines, but because of the weight they carried. Jordan started a youth foundation, the Evelyn Project. Its mission, to help children of displaced or wrongfully separated parents tell their stories and reclaim their names. Micah started therapy, art therapy. He painted their mother as a phoenix rising from ash, notebook clutched in her beak, flying over barbed wire in courthouses. It got featured in Time magazine. Everywhere they went, they spoke her name. And every time, the silence grew smaller. One night, 6 months later, Jordan got a call from a blocked number. He almost didn't answer, but something told him to. "Hello." The voice was older, southern, regretful. "You don't know me, son, but I was the social worker who handled your case." Jordan didn't say anything. "I lied. I said she missed visits, that she was unstable. I was told to write it that way. They said it was for your best interest. I believed them." He exhaled, shaky. "But I was wrong. I've carried that weight a long time. I wanted you to know the truth came too late for her, but not for you." Jordan's hand trembled. He didn't scream, didn't cry. He just said, "Then help us change it." The man did. He signed an affidavit. The state of Georgia reopened Evelyn's file. And for the first time, it was labeled what it always should have been: unjust termination. A year after that quiet nod at the grave, Jordan stood once more before a crowd, this time at the official signing of Evelyn's Law. President, press, parents, children, all watching. He stepped to the microphone, now 18, taller, voice lower but steadier. "This law won't bring her back, but it will stop the next Evelyn from being silenced, from being stolen." He held the notebook again. "This is what she left us. A roadmap, a rage, a resurrection." The crowd stood. Applause thundered. That night, back at the grave, just the two boys again. No cameras, no speeches, just silence. Micah laid flowers. Jordan placed the medal at her headstone. And for the first time in a long time, he smiled. "Hey, Mom," he whispered. "We made noise." Micah leaned against him, staring at the stars. "You think she hears us?" Jordan didn't hesitate. She never stopped. Autumn swept in quiet and golden, as if the earth itself was ready to exhale. The graveyard had changed. It wasn't just cleaner. It wasn't just known. It felt sacred now. Evelyn's grave stood under a newly planted magnolia tree, its roots deep, petals soft like breath. A bronze plaque had been added to the stone, beneath her name. Her voice became a chorus. Her fight became a future. Jordan knelt beside it, gently brushing away fallen leaves. He wasn't a boy anymore. Not really. His hair was longer. His shoulders broader. His voice still carried the softness of youth, but now wrapped around a steel spine forged from grief, truth, and rage refined into purpose. Micah stood a few feet away, sketchbook in hand. He was working on a mural commission, this one for a school in Chicago named after Evelyn. He'd been invited to paint her there. Her face. Her fire. A mother reborn in pigment. "I've been thinking," Micah said, flipping a page. "We should go see them." Jordan didn't ask who. He knew. "The adoptive family?" he asked. Micah nodded. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't vengeance. It was closure. The house was still there. Upstate New York. Same driveway. Same porch swing. But it felt smaller now, like a lie whose shadow had been pulled away. The door opened slowly. Elaine stood in the frame, older, grayer, shocked. Her husband, Richard, came next, stiff in his polo shirt, as if bracing for court. "You boys look different," Elaine said, voice fragile. "We're not boys anymore," Jordan replied. "We came to ask you something." She nodded, ushering them in. The living room looked untouched. Same photos. Same pale walls. No trace of Evelyn. Not even a question of her. "You knew," Micah said quietly. "Didn't you?" "Elaine, Saturday we were told it was better if you didn't know." "Better for who?" Jordan asked. Silence. "You called her unstable," he added. "You let them erase her." "She scared us," Richard said, arms folded. "She was intense. Angry. Obsessed with proving something." "She was our mother," Jordan snapped. Elaine wiped her eyes. "I didn't know how to be honest. I thought loving you was enough." "It wasn't," Jordan said. "Love without truth is just control." Micah pulled something from his backpack, a framed print of his mural. Evelyn in full uniform, head high, fire behind her. He placed it on the coffee table. "She raised us. Even when you didn't let her," Micah said. "This is who raised us." They stood. Elaine reached for the mural like it might burn her. And then they left. They didn't look back. Weeks passed. Then came the call from the White House. A ceremony. National recognition. They wanted to honor Evelyn on Veterans Day. Jordan almost declined. But Monroe called. "She didn't fight for awards," she said. "But you did. And now the country has to look her name in the eye." So they went. The Capitol lawn was draped in flags. Uniformed officers lined the walk. Cameras blinked like fireflies. Jordan stood at the podium again, in a black suit with a gold pin in the shape of her initials, YMJ. He looked over the crowd. Old soldiers. Young activists. Students wearing T-shirts with her face. Somewhere near the back, the old grave guard Desmond Turner stood in full dress uniform, silent, saluting. Jordan cleared his throat. "When my brother and I first found our mother's grave, we didn't even know she was ours. That's what racism does. It doesn't just kill people, it kills memory." He paused. "It steals names. Erases truth. But Evelyn fought to keep us alive, even when she couldn't be with us. She wrote our names in notebooks. She kept our birthdays in her blood. She didn't just serve her country, she challenged it to be better." Micah stood beside him, holding the notebook up for the cameras. "This book is her voice. And now it's a blueprint for justice." Applause. The president approached and presented them with a posthumous award, the Congressional Medal of Honor for Civilian Sacrifice and Service. It had never been given to someone like her before. They placed it on an empty chair reserved for Evelyn. No one sat there. No one ever would. After the ceremony, the letters started pouring in. From single mothers. From former foster kids. From soldiers who'd buried their truths in silence. One letter read, "I served with Evelyn. She once told me that being black and female in the Army was like being made of glass, always at risk of being shattered. But she taught me how to be steel instead. Another said, your story saved me. I was going to give my baby up because they said I wasn't enough. But now, I'm fighting to keep her. I want to be Evelyn for my daughter. Jordan and Micah decided to publish the notebook. Love Can't Be Erased. The Letters of Evelyn Johnson. It sold out in 2 days. Proceeds went to building a memorial garden for separated families in Georgia on the land where her grave still rested, now the centerpiece of something holy. But the final chapter came unexpectedly. One cold morning, as Jordan prepared to speak at a university in Boston, he received an envelope. Hand-delivered. No stamp. Inside was a DNA test. A name, Sylvia Green. And a note. She wasn't just your mother. She was my daughter. They met Sylvia in a quiet cafe on the edge of town. She was nearly 70. Skin like cocoa, eyes like Micah's. She held a photo of Evelyn as a baby, clutched in wrinkled hands. I gave her up when I was 16, she said. My parents said I'd ruin everything if I kept her. I never forgave myself. Jordan sat in stunned silence. Micah reached across the table and squeezed her hand. She found us, Micah said. Now we found you. Sylvia wept for a long time. Then she gave them a box of Evelyn's baby clothes. Her birth bracelet. A cassette tape labeled Evelyn, 1980. They took it home, played it on an old recorder. A baby's laugh. Then Sylvia's voice. You're going to change the world, baby girl. I just know it. Micah fell to his knees. Jordan placed a hand on his shoulder. She did, Grandma, he whispered. She did. That Christmas, they all gathered at the grave. Sylvia, Desmond, Monroe. Even the librarian who had let them use her computer that first day came with cookies. Micah lit candles. Jordan placed 3 photos at the base of the stone. Evelyn as a child. Evelyn in uniform. Evelyn smiling, arms around her boys. And in the fading light, they read aloud her words, one last time. If they take my name, my story, my sons, I will still rise. Because the fight isn't mine alone. It's in their bones. And one day, they'll find me. And I'll never be lost again. Jordan looked to the sky. Mom, he said, voice steady. You're found now. They stood hand in hand, the dusk turning blue and soft around them. A wind picked up. Not cold, not sharp, but like breath, like a whisper. And in that moment, everything they were was no longer buried. It was alive. Forever. The end. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.